with us. But if we are not producing anything, we can't enter into trade and commerce with the nations of the earth. As the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wrote in Message to a Black Man, quote, as a people, we must become producers and not remain consumers and employees. We must be able to extract raw materials from the earth and manufacture them into something useful for ourselves. This would create jobs in production. We must remember that without land there is no production, and the surplus of what we produce we would sell. This would help develop a field of commerce and trade as other free and independent people whose population is less than that of ours, so-called Negroes. The truth must be recognized by the black man.
We're talking about revolution because that's the era that you're caught in. You're caught in a revolutionary era.
Defending black women and black children and black babies and black men.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad outlined some basic principles. Number one, recognize the necessity for unity and group operation. Do you understand that if we can work together as a group in unity, we will be more successful, more powerful, more able to do the things that as individuals working by ourselves we have never been able to do. Pool your resources physically as well as financially. Stop wanton criticism of everything that is black owned and operated. Keep in mind that jealousy destroys from within. Observe the operations of the white man. He is successful. He makes no excuses for his failures. He works hard in a collective manner. You do the same. Now, these are things that we must do. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad asked us to commit to save 5 cents a day. He said if we can save just 5 cents a day from our wages, 25 cents a week for 52 weeks in the year, that would mean we would put aside $13 a year that we could save in a national savings treasury. At that time that he wrote this, we numbered 22 million people and approximately 5 million were wage earners. Well, if 5 million wage earners save $13 a year, this would mean 65 million saved out of our wages in 1 year. At the rate of 25 cents per week, it would be painless. Today, brothers and sisters, don't you think we can do better than what we were asked to do 48 years ago? According to government statistics, there are a little over 16 million blacks employed at some level. Well, look what happens if we raise the economic bar and contribute the same nickel a day. The truth must be recognized by the black man.
Defending black women and black children and black babies and black men.
Greetings, beloved family. I begin in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I bear witness that there is but one God. Welcome to the Black Agenda here on the Street 919 FM. I am Brother David Muhammad. And I'm going to be in studio with you up to 9 o'clock on this Saturday morning, August 23rd, 2025. And we have some powerful information to share with you to discuss. In a short while from now, I will open up the telephone lines and take your calls on 342-0081 and 466-5391. And you can send WhatsApp messages straight to me on 332-0214. And you can follow us. I think this morning we're on YouTube. The Facebook feed might be down. All right. So a lot of very interesting things happening in Trinidad and Tobago and the region. So the Venezuela crisis situation, I would address, inshallah, at 8 o'clock. Because there's a lot to unpack out of that. And part of the problem with our analysis of these kinds of events and situations is that we tend to look at each report as an isolated case without taking into consideration that there has been a consistent pattern of intervention, of destabilization, of interference in the political affairs of other countries, in funding and financing plots, coups, rebellions, uprisings, assassinations, and a campaign of lies. Now, America as a nation has done this all over the world since the 1700s and the establishment of the Monroe Doctrine. So it's a consistent pattern. In particular, in Africa, in the Middle East, in the Caribbean, where we have maybe about 8 or 9 direct examples, but also specifically in Latin America, Central and South America in particular. There have always been, and you're talking about a history of almost 200-300 years of just fabricating stories to justify some kind of military intervention. I think I would have played from YouTube the press conference. It wasn't a press conference really, it was an address to the nation by President Ronald Reagan back in 1983, live from the White House, when he was talking about Grenada. And anyone who has been to Grenada before, and of course in particular all of the citizens of Grenada, listening to President Ronald Reagan talk about Grenada, you would have sworn he was talking about a different place called Grenada, not the Grenada that we know. He painted this picture of Grenada being this terrorist island that is plotting to militarily launch an attack against America. Tiny little Grenada. All based on Grenada soliciting the support and assistance of Cuba to build an airport for tourism, to have more people come in and enjoy the sun, sea, and sand. President Ronald Reagan. If you think President Trump is dishonest, well, I can't argue with you on that. But I'm saying this is a pattern that has consistently been part of how America attempts to exercise an iron fist of governance and control over the rest of the world. And this very high-level sensitivity about what is happening in other nations. So if you have a government somewhere who has imprisoned some citizens or has caused the death of some persons or has been linked to some kind of corruption, or they will create a case, a justification to go in and invade if it has anything to do with oil, with wealth, with mineral resources, or any of the vital interests of America, which include the promotion of anti-communist, anti-socialist ideals. But in spite of all of that, the government of Israel can continue on a daily basis the mass murder of innocent men, women, children, and babies. And it's as if it's not even happening on our planet. You know, for the children in this lifetime who are observing this on the news, I hope they grow up with a sense of disgust that our generation have failed to be sensitive to. I hope that the 6 and 7 and 8 and 9-year-olds of today's generation who see the world news or hear the world news or are made aware of what's happening in Palestine, I hope that when they are in positions of decision-making power and authority, when they get older, that they will have a much more urgent sense of horror about the killing of babies, innocent children, and the deliberate starvation as a weapon to steal land. Because not only is America turning a blind eye to this, they are supporting it. And it makes a huge difference when people of influence can come out and let their voices be heard, because the great footballer of Liverpool, Mohamed Salah, who is Egyptian, he put a post on his social media which turned out to be one of the most effective and influential statements by any cultural or sporting icon within a very long time. So here's what it was about. So every day, Israel murder children, babies, women. Those that they don't kill, they would maim, arms blown off, legs blown off, injured, crippled for life by the hundreds every single day. And those who are fortunate enough not to get shot, not to get bombed, not to be murdered or maimed, they're trying to starve them. Yesterday, the United Nations declared the Gaza a famine. It's a famine zone. Now, the whole world already knew this, of course. But the government of Israel releases a statement and says, well, that's not true. That those are the lies of the terrorists. By now, the death toll is approaching something like 70 or 80,000 people killed in almost 2 years. If you divide something like 700 days, you divide something like 70,000 people killed in 7 700 days. Remove 2 zeros on each, so that's 7 people killed. Sorry, 700 days, 70,000. Remove 2 zeros. That would be 700 killed in 7 days, which is an average of 100 a day. You think about that. An average of killing 100 people a day for 2 years. And we're seeing these images, we're seeing all these children. And listen, there are tens of thousands, that's 70,000 dead. But you have more than 70,000 who are alive and nursing gunshot wounds, other life-threatening, life-changing injuries. And all the government of Israel has to say is, well, the terrorists said that. And then, but what about the hostages? So there are supposed to be something like about 300 Israeli hostages left. I don't even think it's that. I think it's about 100. But what about the hostages? What about the Israeli hostages? 70,000 Palestinian lives are worth less than approximately 100 Israeli hostages. And they keep killing and killing and killing and killing. It's a merciless, blood-lustful, blood-thirsty people who are being supported by America. Meanwhile, you're hearing President Trump talking about how horrific it is that people are dying in Ukraine. Now, again, I don't have all the stats, but I don't think 1,000 people have died in Ukraine as yet as a result of that war. Not even 1,000 people, to the best of my knowledge. I might be wrong. But that's the world we live in today, beloved. And so we have these warships, American warships in our region, looking at Venezuela. But like I said, we'll come back to that. And then we have these elections in both Guyana and Jamaica in the first week of September. Now, for some reason, it appears that the election in Guyana is being paid much more close attention from Trinidad than have previous elections in Guyana, we may say for obvious reasons. But I have observed the tone of the Guyana elections coming up, carded for first week of September 2025. And I've observed and noticed a number of parallels between their kind of social and cultural campaigning and the similarities that it bears to that of Trinidad and Tobago. Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago have always been almost like twin sisters demographically, with the racial and ethnic distribution by percentage of, in particular, Africans and East Indians and other ethnic groups, Chinese and Europeans and Middle Eastern origin persons, etc. You have two societies that are very similar structurally, and it appears that we both have an almost identical template as far as the manner in which political campaigns are carried out. But what we need to pay specific attention to is that in both societies, obviously I'm much more familiar with one than the other, but from my observations it would appear that both in Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago, the only ethnic community that is divided by politics are African people. I have made the point on numerous occasions that within the East Indian community, within the Chinese community, within the Syrian community, within the white community in Trinidad and Tobago, you have members of both major political parties. You even have families under the same roof. Sometimes you have siblings with the same parents or cousins with the same grandparents who join different political parties, are political rivals to one another, but still make their family, their ethnicity, and by extension their unity, their number one priority. But when it comes to African people in both societies, it appears that we, under many circumstances, put our political differences first as the defining characteristic on how we perceive one another as either friends or enemies, foes or rivals, and then we proceed to deal with one another on that basis. No other race of people hate each other because of the political decisions that they make. And you're seeing traces of this in Guyana as well. So both Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana, you have a predominantly African-based party and a predominantly East Indian-based party. And both parties, again, attract people from all of the different races. And all of the different races remain a family. They remain combined. They remain united. But we, African people, as soon as we see our own brother or our own sister in the opposite political party, they become a target. And when we target one another, we are doing the work of those who oppose all of us as a community, because no political party, regardless of which state we're talking about, has made the development and the empowerment of African people a number one priority. We have at best enjoyed intermittent moments of progress, of success, of some kind of accomplishment or reward, major decisions taken, whether it be in education or health or law, or in infrastructural development and social and cultural advancement. We have had specific moments under both governments, both in Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana, that we would have benefited from as a group collectively, but no political party has made the empowerment of African people their number one priority. We have sat back and we have looked at East Indian people become empowered as a group based on political decisions. And we have sat back and we have looked at local whites, Chinese, and Syrians become empowered as a community, again, through political decisions. But the Africans must be kept divided for the benefit of those who use us as a vote bank to advance these causes. And what works best for those politicians with mischievous agendas is when we are at each other's throats, we attack one another, scorn, malign one another, try to stab each other in the back, betray one another. That works well for the politician who's seeking power, because he just has to sit back and watch the black community self-destruct. Now, when it comes to sellouts and traitors and those who have approached the African community giving the impression that they have their interests at heart, but then turn around and serve someone else, We have had that on both sides. As a matter of fact, our full and complete track record is being betrayed by the political class. What we need to be able to do is to identify genuine, sincere persons in political life who have an authentic concern for the upliftment and development of the black community and the provision of opportunities. We need to be able to identify whether or not a political organization or group or individual will facilitate African economic empowerment, African education, African business in particular, access to equal pools of wealth that have made other ethnic groups rich. We need to be able to see whether they're in this political party or that political party. We have to be able to recognize when, where, if, and how a politician has the will to see the African community grow and develop, or whether it's just decisions being made to keep us quiet and make us happy by receiving handouts. And this is where we as a community have failed. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in Africa in October 1994 for that great rally where close to 2,000 black people were taken back from America to Ghana. The minister said, and I want you to think about this. Minister Farrakhan said, the most important characteristic of leadership is not knowledge of political science, expertise in law and legislation. It is not an understanding of finance and economics or society and its social structure. The most important component in leadership is vision. Now think about it. Let that marinate. Vision. Because when a leader has vision, the minister explained, then they could pull in the political scientists, they could pull in the sociologists, they could pull in the economists, they could pull in the experts on law and legislation, and they could pull in the technocrats and the professionals in all these different fields. But that most important component is vision, and the way that you test the vision of a politician would be to get them to answer, what do you see for me? What do you see for my people? What do you see for my community? And when you compare what many of our politicians have seen within their vision for the black community in comparison to what they see for other communities, many times, for the most part, it is a vision of us being contained, of us being confined, of us being restricted, of us being kept happy with just enough food, clothing and shelter, minimum wage employment, and to convince us that we do not deserve the best that the society has to offer. Therefore, you lower our self-esteem, take away our self-confidence, talk about how hard everyone else has worked and that we have not, even though we're working harder than everyone else. and still staying poor within our type of economy that has been supported and upholded by these politicians. Their vision for us has been for us to be kept poor, hungry, naked, ragged, out of doors, and oppressed, with just enough political hope to be one vote away from being kept quiet for another 5 years. That has been the vision for you Africans. But the vision for other ethnic groups has been more land, more buildings, more loans, more opportunities, more expansion. Oh, beloved. And then here we are on the ground level, like watchdogs waiting to see who goes from this party to that party or that party to this party. And then we start barking and we attack. And we target each other like crabs in a barrel, trying to pull each other down. While everyone else is in the pavilion of the arena watching and maybe even sometimes laughing. Laughing at what? Laughing at who? Laughing at us. Beloved, yesterday at Juma, we were talking about this passage from the Holy Quran, which is so profound, where Allah says in the Quran, in describing the character of an evil person, says in Surah 3, and there are those that when good things happen to you, it upsets them. But when bad things happen to you, they rejoice. Surah 17 verse 11 says, and there are those who pray for evil as they ought to pray for good. Now look at that frame of mind. We have become a people, and again, you see it rooted in the politics of our social cultures, that when it comes to our opponents and bad things happen, it makes us happy. And when good things happen to our opponents, it makes us upset. Beloved, that is like a self-imposed curse. If you feel that way about your own people, it is like a self-imposed curse. Let me open up the telephone lines. 3420081 and 4665391. And let me say this. So there was a certain murder that took place, which, and again, you know, all of these are terrible. All of these are dreadful. There was one in particular that was reported in the news this morning that I would describe as peculiar, because it was said that the daughter of, I have to get all the details of course, but the daughter of Nyabinghi, a local cultural icon, the daughter of Nyabinghi, was killed yesterday at a robbery at their business place in Tunapuna. And we pray that Allah comforts the family, but could you imagine being in service to a community for decades upon decades, and then something like this occur? All right, now I have a little issue here with the phones. I might have to turn my volume down to hear you at first while I get this sorted out. But caller, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Morning, Brother David.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. My issue on this situation in Venezuela there, and our government not taking any position, taking a side on this matter is a very, very serious concern for us here, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but in the Caribbean on the whole. By not standing and making your position clear is a very, very serious cause for concern, because you are sending a very strong message to the people of the Caribbean that whatever the United States do to Venezuela, you agree with that. And this is not a nice position for us to be in here as a small nation in the Caribbean. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Like I said, I'm going to give my remarks on that in the 8 o'clock hour, but I appreciate your words. Caller, good morning.
Morning, David Morgan.
Good morning, sir.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam.
David Mohammed, would you advocate for the African to vote for the PNM? Would you?
Well, I have never, ever advocated for anyone to vote for anybody. What I advocate for is for us to seek to empower ourselves as a community through our unity. I think that should take priority over any political choices. I know many in this society disagree with me on that, but I've also noticed that many of those who disagree with me on that tend to occasionally agree, depending on the time and the circumstances. But that is my position. My position is empowerment of us as a community. Or else, no matter who we vote for, we will be the victims.
Why you say that? And Ms. Kamala, when she make policy, that she must make it across the board. If it's policy across the board, land distribution across the board, pension across the board, minimum wage across the board, increase public servant pay across the board, seeing about the children life fund across the board. If he vote for the African will destroy the African in this country.
Well, okay, so you have issues, right? So what you're describing here are issues. Yeah. And part of the paradox, again, of both Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana is that some of us within our community tend to look at who you're affiliated with as a political party as how we determine whether or not you're our friend or our enemy. Some people say, okay, this is the party where most of us are, or that our parents voted for, or our grandparents voted for, therefore that is the party that I'm going to support. But there are others who would tend to look at individual policies, and all of those things that you mentioned are good. The trap that we fall into sometimes, unfortunately, is that we might, because of how adversarial the politics is, we might end up condemning something that is done by the other government that is really for our betterment. Take for example, the perfect example is the African Bank, okay? We've advocated for about the last 7 or 8 years for Dr. Rowley's government to bring in the African Bank. It will provide untold opportunities for African business empowerment. They came up with their reasons not to, all right? Now, this government is saying that they will bring it in. Okay, so let's say, so what is my position supposed to be on that? Am I supposed to say, well, I'm loyal to the last government, so I'm going to go against the African Bank. You see, that's the trap we could fall into sometimes.
There's a moment in Guyana, right?
Yeah.
When Dr. Lindian, when the Forbes Bonham was running there, he oppressed the African people and the Indian people.
Well, I don't endorse that. I don't agree with that.
With Bonham oppressing the own people in Guyana?
Yes. Burnham, to me, Forbes Burnham was a great Caribbean icon. He was one of the 4 founding fathers of CARICOM. He was the father of what we know today as the CARIFTA. And he was a visionary in many, many ways. But at the same time, he was probably the most demonized political leader that the Caribbean has ever had. There was more propaganda against him, probably more so than any other Caribbean leader that I can think of.
Dr. David Mohammed, when in Guyana, right?
Yeah.
When the opposition PPP was keeping party, Bonham used to send people to burn down them the opposition places and things.
Right. So we heard those kinds of stories
about
a lot of different people.
Yeah, and my grandmother had also run. My grandmother had also run with 4 children. Bonham, they keep a meeting in one of the village, and where he keep the meeting was by an African man also living opposite the river next to my grandmother. And when they keep the meeting by the African man, when they're sharpening the tree line and thing, the African guys swim across the church and warn my grandmother to run because they come across to kill him. We have a woman in Arang West showed me the same thing the other day. She live in Arang West. It's African men who help us Indian people against the own African. This was serious thing in Ghana.
Okay, but again, now let me make a point. I mean, that is tragic. That's
this
horrific.
Is serious thing in Ghana.
But
this is serious thing that happened in Ghana.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
but wait. Are you hearing me?
All of this, right?
Are you right? So the point that I'm trying to make is, and this is how it is done, and I understand that Burnham was a victim of this kind of propaganda. So there were supporters of his, just like there were supporters of either party here, supporters of PNP and JLP in Jamaica, supporters of BLP in Barbados. There will always be supporters of political parties who will carry out destructive acts.
Not with all the commander in chief.
Oh, but wait, hold on. So it's easy to say, 1 second, it's easy to say that Forbes Burnham sent them to kill or to burn down or whatnot. So he has, from the best of my knowledge, been a victim of that kind of propaganda.
You're trying to twist it. Because what David Mohammed, the party you support is the PNM, and the PNM is the demise for the African people. And brother, if you're supporting the PNM...
But wait, hold on a second.
Yeah.
Repeat what you just said.
I said, you supporting the PNM.
Who?
I hear more...
No, wait, hold on. You're going too fast. You're going too fast. Did you say you as in me?
Let me talk slowly again.
No. I'm asking you to repeat what you said. Did you say me, David Mohammed, supported the PNM?
Yeah, David Mohammed supported the PNM.
Okay. All right. Well, sir.
You're not advocating for GNC.
Sir.
And the PNM keeping down the African people in this country.
Sir.
By miles, disseminating the weight only 1%.
Sir.
How you could speak against this?
Right. So
come to the African people.
All right. So I'm sorry to say that you are.
Land distribution are going to the African people.
Are you hearing me at all?
Yes, I am here.
All right. So I want you to hear this, sir. You are a liar, and you're a vicious, blatant liar. You should ask if I support any party. As a matter of fact, I think at the beginning of this conversation, you did ask
Brother, you fooling the African people, brother.
Say again?
You're fooling the African people.
With how? Give me an example of a statement that was made.
With the intelligence, you just spit in the woods, brother. Without due respect, brother. Allah will listen to you.
All right, but sir, I'll say to you, you are a liar.
No,
and all that you've said has just lost credibility. Because if you're saying, one, that I'm supporting a political party, and I have never supported any political party, I have supported individuals in both political parties, and I still do support different individuals in each political party and individuals outside of the two main ones. But for you to say that I'm supporting one, I'm saying you're a liar, and two, you've just taken away the credibility of the statements that you just made about Forbes Burnham sending people to kill or injure or burn or whatever.
This has been proved, brother. This has been proved.
Okay, yeah, but listen to my point. Listen to my point. If you just told a straightforward, blatant lie on me, and then after that you're saying something about Forbes Burnham, and I know that you've lied on me, that has taken away the credibility of what you've just said about Forbes Burnham, because now I've come to the conclusion that I cannot believe what you say because you're an untruthful person.
The African is not supposed to believe what you say.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for calling. The thing is, the conversation was not going that badly. You know, there was the whole Forbes Burnham statement, which I was curious about. But when you start to tell me who I'm supporting, well, then now I know that maybe what you said about Forbes Burnham was completely untrue also. Caller, good morning. You don't have very long. Yes.
And that is me, right. Me and I'm
Say again?
Me and that the friend, I'm of African race, he's of Indian race.
You said he's your friend?
I said that's the friend.
Okay, you know what? I need you to call back. I need you to call back, okay? We'll be right back.
You've got bills to pay, and so do we. Let's go pay some bills on the street 919 FM.
Attention business owners. Are you looking to reach a vast audience and boost your brand's visibility? Then look no further. The Street 919 FM is here to help you shine. With over 170,000 followers on our social media platforms, our radio station is the perfect platform to showcase your products and services. Join us and let your message be heard by thousands of eager listeners. Contact us now to learn more about our affordable advertising packages. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to connect with your target audience. Advertise with the Street 919 FM today. For more information, call 399-5959 or 384-2232. Join the winning team with Pastor Alkaline John
every Wednesday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. and every Thursday night from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Live on the Street 919 FM as he talks about Lviv, the power of 5 fruits, one of the most powerful antioxidant supplements on the market today. The 5 superfruits in Lviv are mangosteen, acai, pomegranate, goji, and nuni. These fruits have a positive and profound impact on human health performance and disease. Join him as he gives live testimonials of the Lviv healing powers. To get more information, you can contact Pastor Alkaline John at 516-286-7079 or you can visit his webpage at www.alkalinejohn.com. Remember,
every Wednesday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. and every Thursday night from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m.
live on the Street 919 FM.
The time is now 8 a.m. This time check is sponsored by Lambeau Credit Union. Always here for you.
The views expressed are not necessarily the views of the management of the Street 919 FM.
This Java, get ready to chase the crunch with KFC. Dip it, dunk it, and drip it with our juiciest chicken tenders ever for as low as $29.95.
It's Java, it's summertime. KFC makes it all come alive. Big lines turn into big appetite. Hit the beach with KFC. Yeah.
Choose our hot and spicy or extra crispy non-spicy tenders and dip, dunk, and drip into our flavorful sauces, Java style.
Gonna spice up the summer, let's go.
So, chase the crunch and make Java finger-licking good with KFC.
I love you.
The Trinidad and Tobago Council of Evangelical Churches, together with national cultural icon Mr. William Monroe, presents the first ever national concert of choirs, Divine Harmonies, Saturday, December 6, 2025, at the Grandstand, Queen's Park, Savannah. Choirs will be competing for prize money to the tune of $250,000, with the winner walking away with the grand prize of $100,000. We invite all church choirs nationwide to participate in this spiritual, cultural, and musical richness that will bring upliftment to our nation and redound to the glory of God. Tickets will be available August 15th from Maranatha Bookstore and outlets of the Trinidad and Tobago Council of Evangelical Churches. For more information, call 719-9599 or 497-0361. Divine Harmonies, ushering in the glory of God. This is Apostle Anthony Golson, and I'm inviting you to be there.
Light up your weekends at Vibes Nightclub, Tobago's hottest spot. 3 epic nights of music and energy await every Thursday. Karaoke Thursdays. Kick off at 8 p.m. with free entry. Grab the mic, unleash your inner star, and sing all night. Beers on special for $10, 2 Campari for $25, and giveaways for the best singers. Every Friday, Limers Fridays. Kick off at 8 p.m. with free entry. Vibes with your crew and enjoy beers on special for $10, 2 Campari for $25, and 2 White Oak for $25. Every Saturday, Raw Saturdays. Everything goes, nothing but good vibes. Free entry and an all-star DJ cast to bring the vibes. Vibes Nightclub is where Tobago shines. Join us Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for music, fun, and unforgettable nights. Don't miss out. Your weekend starts at Vibes.
The #1 bookstore in Trinidad is having the biggest back-to-school sale for the holidays.
Shop at Sharon's Bookstore for the biggest back-to-school sale.
All your kindergarten, preschool,
primary, secondary school,
and tertiary education supplies at ridiculously low prices. Sharon's also carries a wide range of sneakers, socks, t-shirts, vests for girls and boys,
and much more items for school. So don't miss Sharon's back-to-school sale.
Now on Eastern Main Road, San Juan, Tunapuna.
2 locations at Trin City Mall, ground level and first level. We're also open on Sundays from 8 a.m. Check us on Facebook for up-to-date info and promotions. Also, message us for a quick response.
Blessings in the wonderful name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. You are invited to listen to the Final Hour broadcast heard every Monday from 12 midnight to 5 a.m. in the morning on the Street 919 FM radio. Hear my mom, Pastor Helen Garcia, and myself, Pastor Valentine Garcia Jr., preach the Word of God to the elderly, youth, and children. We can be contacted at 629-0113 or 623-8444. The church is located at 26 Prince Street in Port of Spain. We look forward to you joining us. God bless you.
As my life I lay it on the altar, as my life.
Looking for a safe and relaxed professional massage therapist and nutritionist? Look no further. Nature's Touch with Empress Judy and Associates offers a natural approach to better health. Treat yourself to a professional massage therapy and nutrition advice in a safe and relaxed atmosphere. Rejuvenate your body, mind, and soul at Nature's Touch Therapy. For an appointment, please call or WhatsApp 1-868-398-8282 or visit our Facebook page. Remember, your health is our responsibility at Nature's Touch.
Planning your Tobago getaway?
Choose the highest Google-rated car rental company on the island, O'Neill Auto Rentals Tobago. Located just minutes from the A&R Robinson International Airport, at O'Neill, we pride ourselves on being the most tech-savvy car rental company in Tobago. Our process is 100% digital. No paperwork, no long lines. From easy pickup to seamless returns, renting a car in Tobago has never been simpler. WhatsApp us now at 1-868-361-1042 to book your vehicle. Don't forget to mention promo code RADIO2 to receive a 5% discount on your rental. Send a WhatsApp message to 1-868-361-1042 today. That's 1-868-361-1042. O'Neill Auto Rentals Tobago, the easiest, most reliable car rental experience on the island.
Vehicle availability is subject to change. Driver must be at least 25 years old and have a valid driver's license to book. For more information, visit www.rentalcartobago.com.
Share the live. Share the live. The Street 919 FM on Facebook and Instagram. Share the live. Iowa George on Instagram. Share the live. Iowa TV and Street TV on YouTube. Share the live. The Street 919 FM.
Demanded. Brotherhood is obligatory.
Black man get up, black man stand up, black man you better listen.
So there's a need for brotherhood.
Black man get up, black man stand up, black man you better listen. Black man get up, black man stand up, black man you better listen.
Brotherhood is demanded.
Black man get up, black man stand up, black man you better listen.
Brotherhood is required. Brotherhood is demanded. Brotherhood is obligatory. Brotherhood is essential, it is urgent, and it is compulsory. But the time demands brotherhood. Whenever the dominant white society fears for its economic future, racial tensions are always aggravated. The aim of Almighty God is to bring the black man and woman together. The aim of Almighty God is that we, no matter how divided we have been in the past, must experience unity in order to gain the success that we seek and the progress that we desire. There is no way that a divided people can build a future. Brotherhood is required. Brotherhood is demanded. So there's a need for brotherhood. But if you walk the earth proud and arrogant, you never learn your lesson because you think you already know. And how in the hell could you know and be in the shape that we're in? How can there be any brotherhood if there's not even the honoring of a word?
Black man get up, black man stand up, black man you better listen. Black man get up, black man stand up, black man you better listen. Black man get up, black man stand up, black man you better listen.
But the Quran and the Bible bear witness that the heavens and the earth were created with truth.
Black man stand up, black man you better listen.
Brotherhood is required. Brotherhood is demanded. Brotherhood is obligatory. Brotherhood is essential. It is urgent and it is compulsory. I feel that every man that wants to speak should have the right. And if you think you know it better, get on up and get on and do the job. But if you don't know what to do, and all your mouth is able to do is condemn and criticize, but you have no works to show the rightness of your philosophical adherence, then maybe you should rethink your position.
Welcome back and welcome to the second hour of the Black Agenda here on the Street 919 FM. I want to invite you out to a very special lecture presentation that I'm doing tomorrow morning, an essential conversation for our community entitled Religion versus Spirituality. We cannot afford to get the two confused. One has empowered us, the other has been used against us. One has given us a sense of self and belief and confidence to confront whatever challenges and obstacles there may be. The other has formed us into almost programmable respondents and made us numb to oppression and caused us to defend our slave masters and exploiters. But we tend to confuse the two sometimes. Very important lecture presentation. Tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock at the Kwame Ture Center. Religion versus spirituality. Now, let's look at our region for a bit. There's a lot of tension taking place. And we would have seen over the last few years, not just with the advent of Donald Trump as President of the United States for his second term, but even prior to that, we have seen this hostility and skepticism and propaganda about Venezuela. So what I want to do at this point is give us an overview of this situation and the context within which it is happening. Because again, this is the mistake that we tend to make in our attempt to analyze current affairs situations, we tend to observe them as isolated cases, which causes us to miss the pattern, which has, more often than not, been a consistent geopolitical culture that has always been exercised in this manner. So if you ignore all of that history, all of that past, if you turn a blind eye to the modus operandi of the way that America has attempted to police the world, if you don't take that into consideration, you will miss the main points of what we're looking at. Now, back in the 1700s, the 5th president of the United States of America, President James Monroe, on, I believe it was December the 5th, 1783, established a doctrine. Look at how far back this was, 1783. They established an official United States government policy that has, from that day all the way up to this day, been a guiding principle in how America deals with foreign nations. There have been a number of amendments, a number of updated versions. You had people like President the first Roosevelt. You had the Declaration of America's Worst Policeman. You had Truman and this idea of the creation of the third world. You had what was called the corollary arrangement. You had these different steps. The occupation of Haiti, the occupation of Cuba, action in the Dominican Republic. And at all these different moments, they invoked the Monroe Doctrine. But coming up to more recent times, let's look at America's relationship with Latin America in particular. Because there have been numerous cases of direct military intervention, covert operations, economic pressure, and support for non-democratic regimes by the United States government in Latin America. We are quick to condemn coups and uprisings and rebellions and revolutions in any democratic nation. So while in America they condemn that, they support it in foreign countries if those insurrectionists are in the best interests of United States policy. It's the same thing that France does in Africa, and that our brother President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso has kicked the French out because of their destabilizing influence in many African states. So if there's a group of rebels or breakaway soldiers from the military who are willing to overthrow a democratically elected government and create stronger ties with Europe, then they support them. So the same way France has done that in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Niger, in the Sudan, in Mauritania, in Morocco. Oh, because listen, we have a brother in Trinidad right now. He is the ambassador to Western Sahara. Look at the map of Africa, and you see Western Sahara is bordered by Morocco on the north and Mauritania on the south, with part of their border by Algeria as well. Western Sahara is a sovereign nation in Africa, for which France is trying to support Morocco in claiming territory there. But the brother he's the CARICOM ambassador to Western Sahara. We were honored to have him as a guest visiting the Kwame Ture Center on Wednesday. An amazing man. He would be, I think, leaving Trinidad today to go to Suriname, to go to Barbados, Jamaica, St. Kitts. Another direct contact between Africa and the Caribbean. But again, some nations are a bit cautious about welcoming Western Sahara because of their conflict with Morocco, who is being backed by the French. It's deep, beloved. Let me get back to Venezuela and Latin America in this region. You need to read the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman, where the author Joe Perkins, who used to be an agent for the United States government, described his interaction in Latin American countries on behalf of the government of the United States of America. And once there were any leaders of countries, he spoke about Panama, he spoke about Chile, he spoke about Colombia, Venezuela. Once you have countries where the leadership does not want to establish policy that is favorable to the United States, there are a whole range of responses. Again, look at the history. Forget about right now, just for now. These accusations of this president is a drug trafficker, or this prime minister is a criminal, this president of this Latin American country has been linked to however many kilograms of cocaine. These are old, dirty tricks. I'm giving you the truth of the history. You could make up your own mind. I can't tell you about Maduro today. I don't know him. But I can tell you about what America said yesterday about other political leaders in Latin America that were against their policy. So these destabilizing actions by the United States in Latin America, and all of this, beloved, this isn't any kind of controversial teaching or any kind of radical discourse. This is Caribbean studies. This is basic Caribbean and Latin American social studies that all students in our region need to learn. So, America's actions in Latin America have been motivated by three main factors. One, the protection of United States economic interests. Two, the enforcement of the Monroe Doctrine, which incidentally was first invoked. It was established as a policy in December 1783, but it would have been first invoked with, believe it or not, Venezuela, for the border dispute that there was there as far back as the 1700s, which America supported Venezuela. And then the third main factor, particularly during the Cold War, the containment of communism. So any kind of socialist or communism ideals that are coming out from a political regime, they must invade, or they must assassinate, or they must destabilize those regimes and try to whip up popular support against them. That's why they funded almost 100 assassination attempts against Fidel Castro. That is why they invaded Grenada, and that is why they had a communist watch list that was so long that included hundreds and hundreds of people, including Trinidad and Tobago's own Claudia Jones, who started the Notting Hill Carnival in England, which incidentally is this weekend or on Monday. So let's look at, don't leave me all alone with this. Let's look at some cases of this American interference in Latin America. So you have the Cold War interventions and coups. Major case in point, Guatemala, 1954. The CIA orchestrated a coup that overthrew the democratically elected president, Jacobo Arbenz, who had implemented land reforms that threatened the interests of the United States-based United Fruit Company. Now, I'm a teacher, so I'm going to give you bits and pieces of homework in between. You Google the United Fruit Company of Guatemala. Google it. And what will come up is, yes, about this American company in Guatemala that was very profitable. But what must come up as well is some of the political history of President Jacobo Arbenz, who felt that too many American foreigners were getting rich off Guatemalan resources while Guatemalan citizens were staying poor. So as a political leader that was looking out for the people, he decided, well, look, I am going to come up with some kind of policy. Now, I want you to think very closely on this. On too many occasions, America has interfered in Latin America to promote American interests, but at the same time, while promoting American interests, it has tended to have an impoverishment effect on the locals. So they bring up this Monroe Doctrine, established by 5th President of the United States, James Monroe, back in December of 1783, and use it as a strong-armed approach to encroaching on the resources of foreign nations. So, in Guatemala in 1954, when President Jacobo Arbenz looked at his country, looked at the state of his people, saw the poverty there, and looked at the United States Fruit Company, which became a mega multi-millionaire project, President Arbenz said, no, something needs to be done. As a politician who, it would appear from the outside, had genuine love for his people, for his country, said, I am going to make a political decision to empower the people of Guatemala, even if it means less profit for the American investors. So the CIA gave money, military, financial assistance to a group of rebels to plot a coup, installed a military dictatorship, which to this day there is still unrest, instability, civil war in Guatemala. Guatemala has had one of the highest murder rates in the world. From that time, Guatemala was peaceful, loving, quiet country. America comes in. I'm telling you, do your homework on the United Fruit Company. And President Jacobo Arbenz, he said, look, we need to empower our people. They orchestrated this coup. They overthrew him. Needless to say, American business can now thrive in Guatemala again, but the people remained poor, and there's instability, there's conflict, military dictatorships, people just engaging in killings and assassinations started by America. 1973 in Chile, the United States government, under arguably one of the most corrupt American presidents ever, Richard Nixon, deliberately worked actively to destabilize the socialist government of President Salvador Allende. Now, there was a coup led by the military leader, General Augusto Pinochet. America supported Pinochet to overthrow Salvador Allende, because Salvador Allende in Chile had this vision of empowering the people of Chile, even if it meant limiting access to American business. Because all of these poor countries all over the world, it's not that there's no wealth in these countries, it's not that there's no minerals in these countries, or that there's no money in these countries, but many times it is corrupt local politicians who open up avenues for foreigners to come in and bleed the wealth and resources. In Trinidad and Tobago, we would have had something a little bit different with a brand of domestic colonialism, or what Kwame Ture in Black Power spoke of as ghettoization, where we all live in the same country, but one group, an elite, 1%, powerful community, was empowered locally to have the bulk of the wealth of the society transferred into their hands, while the masses, in particular African people, were in poverty. In Latin America, it was internal, external. The people in the country were poor, while the American investors and European investors on the outside were rich. And Salvador Allende was a socialist. He said, power to the people. We have to nationalize all these resources. Let the people reap the profits. America said no. So they supported General Augusto Pinochet, who also ran into his own problems. And, you know, of course, they're quick to denounce you when you run into problems. But Salvador Allende was overthrown, and Augusto Pinochet led what was described by America themselves, even though they supported him, as a brutal dictatorship which killed and tortured thousands of political opponents. He was supported by America. He was given the resources to carry out his coup by America. And when he got a bit too brutal, that's when they pulled back and said, oh, this is a bad man, all of a sudden. Nicaragua, in the 1980s, the United States provided extensive support to the Contras, a right-wing rebel group fighting against the Sandinista government. The Contra War was a key part of the Ronald Reagan administration's efforts to undermine a government that it viewed as a Soviet ally. Again, let me give you some more homework. Read the testimonies of Oliver North on how drug trafficking was part of the American government's strategic moves to fund rebel groups in Nicaragua. Now, they're not going to say that Ronald Reagan was a drug trafficker, even though under him, in their proxy war in Nicaragua, they used the sale of drugs, illegal cocaine, to fund these Contra rebels. But no one is going to call Ronald Reagan a drug trafficker. But today we're going to call Maduro a drug trafficker, in spite of there being no evidence of him being directly linked to any such transactions. You had direct military interventions. Cuba, 1898 to 1902, and again Cuba, 1906 to 1909. America intervened in the Spanish-American War, which resulted in America occupying Cuba. And even after Cuba gaining independence, the Platt Amendment, which is like an amendment to the original Monroe Doctrine, they're not going to let go of that Monroe Doctrine from the 1700s. The Platt Amendment was established, which gave America the right to openly intervene in Cuban affairs and to establish a military base at Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. Hasn't that ever puzzled you before? That how could Cuba be so liberal, so socialist or communist, all these sanctions on Cuba, all these restriction of access of people to travel into the United States because of their links or ties with Cuba, but yet still America has this military base in Cuba? One of the main ones are Panama. You need to study Panama because twice America had major interference in Panama. You had at the turn of the century, I think it was 1903, where America wanted to build the Isthmus of Panama or the Panama Canal. The government in Panama said no. America supports a coup. Government is overthrown. A new government comes in. And guess what their first project is? The building of the Panama Canal. And then again in 1989, America invaded Panama to oust and arrest their leader, Manuel Noriega. And guess what they were charging him with? Manuel Noriega was so loved, so popular. Did you know America bombed Panama days before Christmas in 1989? What were we doing then? They called Manuel Noriega a drug trafficker. And to the best of my knowledge, the case of Manuel Noriega was the only, I might be wrong, but I think definitely within the last 100 years, you could correct me if you know otherwise, the case of President Manuel Noriega of Panama was the only case where the leader of a country was arrested and handcuffed in their country and taken to another country. Manuel Noriega, and some of us, we may remember something because I remember it. I would have been a child back then, but I remember because I've always been a musician, I've always loved music. And what fascinated me about that story was that the American military parked all these tanks outside President Noriega's mansion. And they were blasting rock music at a high volume to try to flush him out of his house. I remember being fascinated about that as a child. Anyway, they ended up getting him. They pulled him out, handcuffed him. He's the president of the country. Handcuffed him, arrested him, and took him to America as a prisoner. That has never happened. And that is most likely what they're envisioning for President Maduro. So you have those warships around there. But again, you see, when these kinds of episodes happen, they tend to learn from the history. In the same way that we don't learn from our history, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, of all of our studies, history is best qualified to reward the researcher. We can't just have things happening in the past without learning a lesson from them in the present so that we can get guidance in the future. So 1989, President Noriega went through that. And you know what? I think he resurfaced some decades later. And was it him? And I think he made a second attempt to get back into politics. But he was branded as a drug trafficker. And you're even hearing some Trinidadians with responsible offices, politicians, referring to President Maduro as a narco trafficker. How do you know that? So Panama, and again, I would advise us to say, listen, all of this is in Black Studies. In my book, Black Studies, which we're celebrating 10 years and 1 week of now. Chapter 3 of Black Studies is Caribbean Studies. All of this information is in there. All of this history is in there. You need to get that book. It was on sale last week. If you approach me nicely, tomorrow, I just may. Anyway, Dominican Republic. 1965. So the case that I really want us to study for homework is that of Manuel Noriega. How they branded him. How the propaganda machinery was used against him. How, even though America in Nicaragua were involved in drug trafficking for the financing of the Contra rebels against the Sandinista, and America's own Oliver North, a chief American military official, gave a full Capitol Hill testimony on this, which needs to be published in textbooks, but it's there, it's available, it's not hidden, it's not classified information, anything like that. But again, they are not branding President Ronald Reagan as a drug trafficker, even though he would have endorsed it. Dominican Republic, 1965. America occupied Santo Domingo to prevent a pro-constitutionalist rebellion from restoring the democratically elected government of Juan Bosch, which had been overthrown by a military coup 2 years earlier. Now, it's believed that America was involved in the coup to get rid of Juan Bosch. But they were even more aggressive in preventing him from being reinstalled after he was overthrown. How do you explain that? It's one thing for them to support a coup, but now the country is getting together in the right way, legislatively, and saying, okay, this happened, and we are going to fix it. We're going to restore democracy. And then America steps in to prevent the restoration of democracy because Juan Bosch of the Dominican Republic had a policy that was against United States interest. I already spoke about Grenada in 1983. Tiny island of barely 100,000 people at the time. America invades, saying that they had to protect the American medical students and that there was this growing Cuban presence on the island. It turned out that the medical school in St. George's, Grenada was a spy agency for the CIA. Again, beloved, don't take my word, do your own research. Okay, so yes, there were medical students there, but it was a base for CIA agents in plotting the invasion of Grenada by America and the removal of Prime Minister Maurice Bishop, one of the greatest leaders that the Caribbean has ever had. Let's look at the economic pressure that was placed on Honduras in 2009. I was in Honduras twice in 2009. America supported a military coup that ousted again the democratically elected government of President Manuel Zelaya. Manuel Zelaya was becoming a bit too left-wing, a bit too much looking at how he could empower the people, even if it meant limiting profit and access to America. I felt so proud, so proud to see those two government ministers in Grenada last week, and Prime Minister Mia Mottley of Barbados, and Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves of St. Vincent saying, if America is going to take away our visas because we are friends with Cuba, then so be it. Don't have to go back to America. And in Honduras, guess where has the highest murder rate in the world right now? Or over the last 10 years? In fact, when I was in Honduras in 2009, at that moment, and you know what? So it was the Soca Warriors were playing a World Cup qualifier, and we were supposed to play the game in Tegucigalpa, and it was moved to the city of San Pedro Sula because of this unrest. Imagine that. This is a World Cup qualifying match, Trinidad and Tobago versus Honduras, and the game had to be moved from one city to another because of the unrest there. Now, in that year, 2009, Honduras had the highest murder rate. And since America's interference in Honduras, more so than any other country in the world, have probably had the highest murder rate of all. Just like Guatemala, many times one of the highest, consistently in the top 5 highest murder rates of countries. After American political interference, giving out guns, giving out weapons, causing division and conflict. We're fighting for one party, the others are fighting for the other party, and there's mass murder. Fortunately, there have not been political killings to that extent in Trinidad, but in Jamaica, again, where the CIA interfered, 3 assassination attempts against Prime Minister Michael Manley. In 1976, he was seen as socialist. They tried to kill Bob Marley because of the revolutionary message of consciousness that was waking up the people. They supported Edward Seaga. And so much weapons were given in Jamaican ghettos. 800 people killed over political violence for the election that brought Edward Seaga into office, who was an agent of the CIA, supported by the CIA, along with our own sister, Eugenia Charles of Dominica, and Tom Adams of Barbados. And look at Jamaica's murder rate today. So the United States has often used economic aid, military assistance, and diplomatic pressure to influence political outcomes in Latin America. And this has included funding political opposition groups, providing intelligence and training to local security forces, and leveraging international financial institutions to promote policies favorable to United States interests. Now, let's look at Venezuela. And I want to, you know what, I'm going to shorten this because I want to open back up the phone lines. But the relationship between America and Venezuela, ever since Chavez, has been one of, it's been fluctuating, it's had its highs and lows, but there has been a shift which is rooted in the rise of this new political ideology in Venezuela and this Bolivarian revolution that is referred to. And I was telling someone recently, when I was a school teacher, I remember, and I remembered this is why it's so important to document things as well. I remember being in a Ministry of Education divisional office. I doubt they're still there, but this would have been at the bottom, the very bottom of Nelson Street. I believe the year was 1993. I was in this office where they had resources. We used to go down to the district offices and get resources. So I would have went on behalf of the principal to, you know, get some like posters and displays for the classrooms. And I remember there was a poster talking about the Bolivarian Revolution, Simon Bolivar, and the hero that he was. Listen, this is in 1993. These were educational materials published by the Ministry of Education, Trinidad and Tobago, for primary school students. Again, I stand to be corrected, but I doubt in 2025 you will see that kind of material being made available for primary school students on Simon Bolivar as a hero of the people. Even the money in Venezuela is named after him. So, this Bolivarian revolution, this attempt ideologically to empower the people, has been a thorn in the side of United States economic interest. And so, going back to the 19th century, America was actually one of the first countries to recognize Venezuela's independence from Spain, going back to 1835. And again, there was this boundary dispute, which America supported Venezuela in the 1800s. And then, when Venezuela tried to get help from America against British encroachment, remember, it was the British and the Dutch that took Guyana. Remember, they used to spell Guyana G-U-I-A-N-A. They changed the spelling to G-U-Y. Right? So you had the British and the Dutch influence. Venezuela sought American help in curtailing the British who were encroaching on Venezuelan land. Again, America sided with Venezuela. And their justification for that in the 1800s was this same Monroe Doctrine, that we are the policeman for the hemisphere. But with the discovery of massive oil reserves in Venezuela, this caused America to become even more interested, with companies like Exxon and Mobil becoming major players in the Venezuelan economy. And so America consistently prioritized the stable flow of oil. Doesn't matter where it's. Someone wrote a whole book about this political lust for oil. Even if there's a tiny country on a map in some stream somewhere and they have oil, America goes after it. If there's some tiny little, really tiny island in the middle of the ocean somewhere, and they have a president or a prime minister, and they have a little bit of oil, and they're saying this oil has to make the people rich, they're going to invade that country and overthrow that tiny. It's a lust for oil. And so, during this current period, this discovery, yes, they try to be friendly and everything, but with the Chavez era, you saw this ideological break. From 1999 to 2013, Hugo Chavez marked a fundamental turning point. And he relaunched this Bolivarian revolution with a socialist agenda to empower the people, and he nationalized various key industries that American investors were making a lot of money on, in particular the oil sector. And he used the money from oil to fund social programs. Did you know that when a poor country borrows money from the IMF, one of the first conditionalities is that they have to defund social programs? When you defund social programs, unrest, instability, and tension becomes more likely. So then, if I now am challenging the government, and the environment is already unstable, and you give me resources to hand out to the people, then I become popular and liked, and with a higher probability of being elected. That is how they play the game. So Chavez's presidency was characterized by increasingly strong anti-American rhetoric. He did this speech where he called George Bush the devil, and he said everywhere George Bush walks, there's steam coming out of his feet and all of that. He wasn't just saying that in a vacuum. He said these people are deliberately trying to increase the murder rate, increase the crime rate, destabilize the country, and force in political regimes that are favorable to American interest. So in 2002, there was a coup attempt, again supported by America, against Chavez, who was so popular and loved by the people. Of course, America denied direct involvement, but did not condemn the coup. And declassified documents later revealed that the President George Bush administration had prior knowledge of the plot. And this is when Chavez came out with these statements. Now, with the Maduro era, following Chavez's death, you have this severe economic crisis taking place, hyperinflation, shortages of food, massive humanitarian migration, and it's important that they capture these pictures. We would have seen the fleeing, of course, many Venezuelans in Trinidad and Tobago also. Then you have the United States sanctions and all these statements, and now these accusations of drug trafficking. Well, as I said, you can make up your own mind. But I personally don't believe what they are saying. This history is too consistent. Guatemala, Panama, Nicaragua, Colombia, all of these countries where they will invade, give money and funding, weapons to people trying to overthrow the government. And when these leaders are a bit too popular with their people, then they try to destabilize in other ways. Assassinations, refusal to recognize a democratically elected government. And you know, we need to be careful sometimes in how we use some of this rhetoric about they stole the election. And listen, that type of talk raises red flags for me, because all of that has been in the CIA's playbook. Just make certain kind of accusations and they will stick and people will believe it. That is how they have survived. And so, with all these American warships in our region, CARICOM has to be strong. I am of the view that we must take a side as one Caribbean region, as one CARICOM, look at the history, and not fall victim to the lies of America. Stay tuned to the Street 919 FM, people. May Allah continue to bless us.
Attention business owners. Are you looking